Coach and Counselor explores how today's youth benefit from intentional, empowering adult leadership. Each episode blends perspectives from coaches, mentors, players, and mental health professionals shaping the next generation on and off the field. From tough conversations to inspiring transformations, we dive into what it takes to support young people in today's world. All right, welcome to the Coach and Counselor. We have Gary Russo on the show here today, a 3-year varsity letterman at the Miami of Ohio, where he put up 19 home runs his senior year and 31 home runs in his 3-year career, both probably still in the top 5 in program history. Gary's currently a partner and executive vice president at the Bledsoe Agency, with a wealth of knowledge derived from various leadership roles in both, the agency and player development technology spaces. Gary's responsible for player personnel and plays a pivotal role in contract negotiations, salary arbitration, and athlete marketing. Gary, welcome to the show.
For having me, Tony. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Well, I got to jump right in and ask that first question of man, you got some good numbers at Miami of Ohio, but why'd you only play 3 years?
Yeah, well, I had good numbers 2 of the 3 years. The middle year, it wasn't great. But 2 years of the 3, I think I had decent years, I'll say. But yeah, my college experience was a little untraditional in terms of a player that was coming through the amateur ranks in high school, playing travel baseball, taking lessons, doing everything under the sun to try to play in the college, at the collegiate level, not realizing that in high school. So to answer your question, I was a walk-on, and it took me 3 walk-on tryouts to make the team at Miami. And I, for whatever reason, kept coming back every fall to try and make the team. And I can share as much as you like on that experience and that process, but the delay in terms of trying to actually get on the team and play was the reason I only lettered 3 years.
Why, what happened between the first time you tried to walk out and the third time? Did they finally say yes? Were they just like, "I will, let's just give this poor soul a chance," or what?
Yeah, kind of. So after my sophomore year, the second year I tried to walk on, and I didn't make the team. I actually took a year off from playing. My freshman year, I tried to walk on and didn't make the team and played for a branch campus, junior college, Miami Hamilton. So I did that my freshman year. I would take the bus. They had public transit for the university. I would take the bus 45 minutes, in my baseball pants, first semester to the branch campus to go to the junior college practice. And I had to take, I think, 6 hours on Miami Hamilton's campus. So I had to take a Saturday morning chem class that I would have to get up at 5:45 in Ohio in the snow to bus over and take my 5-hour long chem class on Saturdays to be eligible to play for the branch campus my freshman year. Sophomore year, I didn't play at all after I failed to make the walk-on tryout. And I was actually going to transfer to Tufts to play Division III, and got into school. My dad had flown me there to Boston. I met him there, was ready to go play Division III baseball. And that summer, the head coach for Miami, there was a coaching switch. They hired Danny Hayden. And I remember sitting there telling my dad and my mom, this is really interesting. There's a new coach. Maybe the third time's the charm. My parents, after going through the entire process of helping me transfer to Tufts, get into Tufts, visit Tufts,
Probably,
they were none too pleased at the time, I think,
I can only
to say the
imagine.
least. So I had this brilliant idea that the Tufts school calendar started later than Miami of Ohio, so I didn't fully move into Miami until after the walk-on tryout when I made the team for the fall. So I kind of went there, kept stuff in my suitcase, and was like, all right, I'm gonna go to one more walk-on tryout my third year. If I don't make the team, I'll go to Tufts. I'll just report late and have to kill myself for a week or two to catch up and really understand my classes and the coursework and get caught up to speed, coming into a new school late. So I had played in a men's beer league that summer while I was just interning in finance in St. Louis, and the guys were like, "Man, you should play Division One. You're pretty good." And they kind of inflated my ego to try for that third time on top of the coaching change. And I remember sitting in the Walmart parking lot in Oxford right as I had got to campus, and emailing Danny Hayden, the head coach at the time, hey, I've tried to walk on before. Congrats on the new role. Want to try one more time. And he actually got back to me and was like, please come to the walk on tryout. Thanks for sending some video. Went to the walk on tryout my third year, and then they told me I made the team for the fall. So I had to call Tufts and say, hey, you know, I knew if I made the team for the fall, I was going to do whatever humanly possible to continue to play there. Um, so once I got told I was at least there for the fall, no guarantees beyond that, essentially moved to a preferred walk on. Um, I was I was I was staying. And so I moved in officially, unpacked my suitcases. My parents drove some stuff up, and then the rest is history. Ended up making the team. That first year, I think I led the conference in home runs, and then played beyond that the next 2 years. And more importantly, got to play with some incredible guys. I was just at a wedding 2 weeks ago with a bunch of Miami, Ohio baseball alums, and it was a really, really cool experience and something I for sure cherish, just given how hard of a road it was just to get there and play there.
Yeah. Do you look back and all and go, all right, yeah, I definitely wasn't good enough that first time. I definitely wasn't good enough that second time. Or do you think I was good enough and I should have gotten a shot? Like, what's your reflection on that now?
I wasn't good enough. I thought I
You
was
weren't good
good
enough.
enough, but I wasn't good enough, especially doing what I do now. But I think like anything that experience of failure, and it's a beautiful part of the game of baseball. Like you experience failure a bunch, whether you're in it or you're trying to make a team, or you're just playing, you're going to fail. And it's a great life lesson. And it's a great, game to teach you about life. And I think, I'm glad that I didn't give up, and I'm glad I kept trying new things and trying, to train in a different way. And, um, yeah, I was not good enough. I don't blame them. I was a corner outfielder with not a lot of power, not a good arm, that couldn't really run and could just hit okay. So I don't know why I thought that I should have, been in the starting lineup every day. Like I probably did when I
Was
was that age, but
was there anything different that happened though? Than like you had a great year, and
yeah,
besides that one year, you had a great career. So
yeah.
you hit 10 home runs, 18 doubles, whatever it was that your first kind of full year there. But so what happened of like, yes, now I was good enough to make this team. Did you just play really well in that tryout? Did you play well in the fall? Like how did that like what switched? What changed?
Physicality for sure. I think a year away from the game, I really devoted myself to the weight room, and I think I gained 25 pounds that year. I remember coming home, my parents being like, "Whoa, you're a totally different person. Like, what happened?" And I finally just had time to really devote myself to the gym and getting stronger, getting bigger, putting on muscle. And then I came home back to the gym and my trainers back in St. Louis, who I think are the best in the business, Jeff Hughes. Um, and he got me kind of back into like explosive and dynamic work. And I coupled with like the year-long strength training, once I then got back for the summer and did like the dynamic rotational core stability, all these things that would help my athleticism. I think like layering that on top of the added strength and muscle, all of a sudden I was like, I could tell like, man, I was hitting the ball way harder than I ever hit the ball. We didn't have ball tracking the way we do now. So I didn't like, it wasn't like I was like, oh, I hit the ball 94 and now I hit the ball 104. But I can tell you it was probably a 8 to 10 mile an hour jump. If I were just
Yeah.
guessing based on like knowing now, watching 1,000 balls hit that have been tracked, I was significantly hitting the ball harder, and I think my 60 time went down by like I was always running like a seven flat or a 7-1, and I think at the walk on trot I ran a 6.67. So my 60
Oh,
time
wow.
dropped a ton too. So I would say
Yeah.
my tools definitely got better, and I would attribute that to the year off of just hitting the gym 4 to 5 times a week for a year consistent, and just focusing on getting as big and as strong as I possibly could.
Yeah, I think we could probably devote a whole
Oh yeah.
podcast to just specifically that.
Yeah.
But that's not my motivation on this one. I mean, let's jump ahead actually to tell us about what you're doing right now.
Yep.
What's the Bledsoe Agency and what do you do there? That's kind of the big one. We can kind of tie in technology because you talked about that a little bit and you
Yep.
had some time in that space. But
Yep.
really, let's talk Bledsoe Agency. What is it? Why are you there? What do you do?
Yeah, great question. We are a baseball only full service agency founded by two brothers, Dustin Bledsoe and Hunter Bledsoe, over 20 years ago. Hunter Bledsoe is our president of development and scouting. He played at Vanderbilt, was SEC Player of the Year, and is one of the top hitting guys, hitting minds in the world. I'm biased, but he probably is the best in the world. He's created tools such as the core velo belt that some people now use to kind of understand how to properly load their lower half and their hips and sequence when they swing. And Dustin Bledsoe, his brother, went to law school, graduated from University of Tennessee Law, and sits on the business side of the firm, where I primarily sit, as you mentioned in the intro, where I oversee contract negotiations, salary arbitration, and athlete marketing. So everything that touches a professional player's career in terms of off the field, we have a full hand in. And I think our model is unique in that we also are a development focused agency. So we're not just negotiating contracts. We're not just doing marketing deals. We're not just doing salary arbitration. We're not just negotiating draft signing bonuses. We are also very involved in player development. We have a full development facility here in Nashville, Tennessee, where a good amount of our clients live full time and train, and the ones that don't live here full time still make a very strong effort to get here as much as they can in the off season to be a part of the training environment that Hunter and the rest of the development team has created. So our goal is not just to negotiate a great contract and negotiate a great draft signing bonus. Our goal is to kind of what we were discussing with even me at Miami, like how do we help you become a better player? Because as I mentioned, like I wasn't good enough and then I became good enough and all of a sudden I got to play. So our goal and our mindset should not just be how do we capture all this value for you in an appropriate manner, but how do we also create value for you? How do we make you a better player? How do we help you hit the ball harder? Because that's ultimately going to translate to results that ultimately translate to more dollars on the field, bigger contracts, bigger arbitration dollars, bigger marketing deals. So we really have a conscious effort to put as many resources as we can into our clients and our players to help them be the best versions of themselves on the field.
So are they two kind of, do you treat these businesses separately? Like, for example, if I'm, a 20-year-old, maybe I'm not a draft prospect. I go to Miami of Ohio.
Yep.
Can I come and train with you?
No,
And train. I have to be draft
it's
eligible.
only
Like,
our advisees, which means an amateur client that is yet to sign a professional contract that we have committed to helping navigate the draft process and ultimately them signing with us as their agent of record as soon as they are officially professional or a professional client. We don't do assessments. We don't do any type of training for anyone that's outside of our client base. It's only full-time, 24/7. All 100% of our resources are committed to making our clients better and helping them,
so,
reach their fullest potential.
so it's kind of a massive add-on, right? Like you guys are definitely different from any, maybe perhaps, I don't know, like any other agency that's out there, or do others do that like you?
Yeah, I'm sure there are others that are trying to invest into development, whether that's in assessments or training or just the facility model where they have a space their clients can train. I think what's really unique about our model is the training environment and atmosphere and the staff in there that every single day that are training these guys. I mean, it is a full off season if you're here for the full duration. And I think the environment and the athletes that you are training around and competing with on a daily basis is really unique because these guys really push each other. They're competitive and they don't like to hit the ball, um, not as hard as the guy next to them. So when they're in there and they're competing and they're facing the eye pitch or they're doing, even just BP and looking at the Rapsodo or the TrackMan and looking at the ball flight data, they compete with each other and it pushes them to really, put their foot on the gas when it comes to training.
All right, so you just brought up those technologies, so let's talk about that. Like how important is that today in the valuation of, for you guys, right? Do you
Yeah.
actually want to take on this client or not? And
Right.
then to the next level of where they might be drafted at, if they're even a draft eligible athlete.
Yeah, I think it's really important. It's not everything. It's just another layer in terms of our assessment or evaluation of a player. There's it's certainly not the end all be all, but I definitely think if you look at some of the best players in the major leagues, they hit the ball the hardest and throw the fastest. So you want to make sure you're training to um, maximize your impact of the baseball if you're a hitter, or maximize your ability to throw a baseball hard if you're a pitcher, because fastball velocity only continues to go up, and bat speed, it's well documented, is a good way to hit a fast moving baseball. If you don't have good bat speed or you're not reaching your fullest potential from a bat speed um, perspective, it can be challenging. Now, bat speed's not the end all be all either. We have clients that are technically on the lower end of bat speed that have some of the best results in the major leagues. So it's not everything. It's certainly not like the only thing you should chase and consider. Like you ultimately have to be a really good baseball player to play in the major leagues. That's still very important, but it is something that we certainly take into account and use in terms of our assessment and evaluation of a player. We do want to know, okay, how fast do they run? How hard do they hit the ball? What's the positional profile? How does that positional profile project into the future? Same kind of things that clubs are probably looking at when it comes to the draft.
Yeah. So I'm watching the playoffs right now. I mean, this
Yeah.
might not air until sometime after the World Series, unfortunately. But I'm watching the playoffs right now, and I am just shocked and baffled at not only the amount of pitchers that are thrown over 95, but shoot, the
Yeah.
guys that are thrown over 100. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, they're just rolling out guy after guy
Yeah.
after guy. Like, how do you, like, how in the world do you hit a 103 mile an hour fastball that has 20 inches of vertical break? Like, I don't, I have
You're asking the
no
wrong
idea.
guy. I couldn't hit like 91 with like 18 inches of like, we didn't know what that was back then. We were like, hey,
Right.
we called it a sneaky fastball, or like it's a, you probably did the same thing before we could really understand
It's a
what
heavy ball.
it's a yeah, like we didn't know. We're like, why am I swinging through this 88? But then another guy's 88 I can handle no problem. We didn't understand that at the time when I was playing. Um, I don't know how they hit it, to be honest. I watch our guys behind the batting cage in the winter where Hunter will crank the eye pitch on, a Tarek Skubal. They'll program his actual repertoire and they'll have our guys face him as if it's game 6 of the World Series and he's, full max effort trying to get them out. And I have no idea how they hit. Brent Rooker had a great tweet. You might be able to pull it up when this airs at one of our clients. And he said something like, I can't wait to be sitting in 40 years watching the postseason, telling a guy he needs to change his approach while he's trying to hit 117 mile an hour fastball, So,
Right.
which is, it's true. I mean, it's crazy how good the stuff is now. It's crazy how hard guys throw. It's crazy how sharp the breaking balls have gotten. And also you have these teams that have advanced algorithms that help them from a pitch modeling perspective attack your specific swing. So the game planning and the deception, and that's why you see all these sign stealing. There's a ton of sign stealing news, I feel like, this year in the postseason. It's like that's a massive edge because if you're facing some of these guys, for some hitters, that might be the only chance with if these guys are on, because they're that good. And I just, yeah, it's amazing to me the ability of these players on both sides of the ball and watching them, compete against this type of stuff is just incredible to watch.
It's the hardest time in the history of the game to be a hitter, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Not even close.
Even the
I
college
mean,
game, like I watched the college game now, and I'm like, I struggled with like 93, and that now is like, back then if you were 93, 96, you were pumping. Like it was like, wow, this guy is Friday night guy. This guy's got really good stuff. And now I go to, games all the time, and I'm like, a lot of these guys are 93, 96 now, even in college.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about specifically this draft and even this last draft, right?
Yeah.
Just a ton of guys drafted in the first couple rounds that are out of high school and pretty much all shortstops. Like
Yeah.
what's the logic and the reasoning of why so many young guys were taken in this last draft and why so many particularly middle infielders are taken?
Yeah, I think if you go to I remember a scout telling me this a long time ago, probably 10 years ago when I was first getting my start in the Cape Cod League. And his biggest piece of advice to me was the first thing I should do when I get to the field is to watch guys in the middle of the field, catcher, second, short, center, because they're the best athletes typically on the field. And a lot of them, as they move up the pro ladder, will potentially eventually get moved off those positions. And if you're already on one of the corners, unless you can really hit or you have an outlier trait in terms of raw power or hitability, it's more challenging. And so a lot of times when teams are projecting, especially younger players that are 18 years old, they want to take the best athletes. And most of the time, your best athletes are up the middle of the field. So your center fielders, your shortstops, your second baseman. And that when they project that, even if you eventually have to move off the position to say third base or right field, you're still at a valuable position. You're kind of starting at the top. Whereas if you're a first baseman or you're a corner outfielder or you're a DH like myself, like I was in college, there's nowhere for you to go. You're just off the field if you have to move off that position. So typically what you'll see in the draft, and the data has certainly borne this out the last couple of years, especially this past year, It was definitely overemphasized is they're really looking early up the middle of the field. You'll still see players that aren't a shortstop or a second baseman get picked, but traditionally you're going to see high school shortstops go a lot more than you'll see like a high school left fielder or corner outfielder early, at least in the
Is
draft.
does price have anything to do with that? Meaning how much they can get them for? Does that play any sort of role? Or two-part question, I guess. Or is the NIL deal situation and so much movement, like if let's say you're recruited, most of these guys are recruited by the LSUs
Yep.
and the Tennessees and pick
Yep.
an SEC, right? Like, and they're all recruited there, and there might be 12 to 14 guys exactly like them in that recruiting class. Like, is it just wise financially for that shortstop to take $2 million, $3 million, whatever that number is, and go and get, almost a guarantee of a 3-year stretch in the minors before they figure it out, as opposed to going to Tennessee or to LSU or to wherever that is, and maybe not even in play, right? They
Yeah.
might even play their freshman year.
Yeah.
Does that play? Is that playing a role into not only the guy why they're recruiting them, but why those recruits are saying yes?
Yeah. I think each family and each individual is its own thing, right? And that needs to be evaluated at the individual level for the player and the family. So what's best for them might not be what's best for another player that's committed to the same program. NIL has certainly changed the game a little bit in terms of the draft and high school players. You now have the ability to make good money playing in the SEC, playing in the ACC, playing at some of these programs where in the past you either were on a full scholarship or you were taking a signing bonus from a major league club. Now, obviously, these schools are able to provide money to players on top of their scholarship that can all of a sudden change the opportunity cost of that decision to go in the draft. In the past, if you got offered $2 million, it was either 0 or 2 million. And now college programs have the opportunity to shrink that a little bit with NIL to make that decision a little bit more difficult. And I think it just depends on the type of player and their desire to start their pro career and their readiness to play professional baseball. It's not it's not easy, obviously, to jump right into the pro game when you're young. You're not getting the tailgate and go to SEC football games. You're not around a bunch of girls and hanging out and going to parties after practice. It's a much different environment. It's a much different feel. But I think if you have the right player who believes in his abilities, if you go out of high school, there's a better chance and higher likelihood you can reach free agency at a younger age, and we're seeing more and more that that's incredibly important in terms of long-term earning potential at the professional level. If you debut at 22 versus you debut at 24, 25 coming out of college, just automatically right there in terms of player projection models and valuation models, the 22-year-old's at a significantly higher or significantly more advantage than the player that came out of college and maybe debuted three years later. So I think that also has something to do with it as well. If you get into the program early and you get up fast and you debut fast, well, your long-term earning potential looks a lot different than if you come straight out of college and spend a few years in the minors and then debut at 25. You can still make an unbelievable living. You can still sign massive contracts. But if you look at some of the larger contracts in professional baseball, a lot of those guys had come out of high school and had gotten into free agency at a very young age.
Got it. Well, crazy here. We're 20 something minutes into this. We're reaching typically that halfway point, so I'm gonna have to take a break for our
Okay.
commercial sponsor. But let me pose a question to you. I mean, you touched on this a few different levels. Let's talk about when we come back. What's the difference between an advisor and then an agent?
Yep.
Because I hear a lot about that. And then are there people that are very specific to doing sort of NIL agents, right? To
Yep.
really help people make money in college,
Yep.
and do you guys participate in that, or is that just something separate? So
Yep.
bunch of little questions there. Let's take a break and I'll come right back to that.
Sounds great.
As we're talking about the challenges coaches face with young athletes, it reminds me of something that affects every youth sports organization, the administrative nightmare that can pull coaches away from actually coaching. I recently spoke with Jennifer from the Riverside Youth Soccer League, and she told me something that really stuck with me. She said, "We were spending more time managing registrations and chasing down forms than we were developing players." Sound familiar? That's exactly why organizations across the country are turning to OperationPlayerAssist.com. They specialize in handling all those behind-the-scenes headaches that eat up your time. Registration systems that actually work, automated communication tools that keep parents informed without blowing up your phone, and emergency response protocols that give you confidence when things go sideways. Jennifer's League saw immediate results. Registration time cut in half, parent complaints about communication dropped to almost zero, and here's the best part: coaches could focus on coaching instead of paperwork. If you're tired of administrative chaos stealing time from what really matters, developing young athletes, I encourage you to schedule a free 15-minute demo with the team at OperationPlayerAssist.com. See firsthand how they can streamline your operation. Visit OperationPlayerAssist.com and click Schedule Demo to book your 15-minute consultation, because when the administrative burden is lighter, everyone wins. Coaches, parents, and most importantly, the kids. OperationPlayerAssist.com, supporting the game behind the game.
All right, we're back. We're back from our quick break there. Appreciate our sponsor, Operation Player Assist. Question was kind of a long-winded one. Sorry about that, Gary. Hopefully you've had some time to think about it.
Yeah.
It's, what's the difference between an agent and an advisor? And then are there people that are just totally separate from that, from a sort of a draft standpoint, that are there specifically to either advise or be an agent when it comes to NIL deals to help them make more money in college? How do you answer that one?
Great question. Yeah. So an agent is obviously something that our agency, something that we provide, services that we provide for professional baseball players. And advisement has always been for amateur players that have yet to turn pro. And then the minute they turn pro and sign their professional contract, that relationship just transfers from advisor to agent. So when a player typically says in high school, I have an advisor, it's typically an agent for working for an agency, or an agency itself that's working on behalf of the player. It's just he's an amateur, so it's the correct term there is advisor. A lot of agencies, ours included, are getting involved in the NIL space, of course, helping families navigate that, helping players navigate that, because you're seeing even at the high school level now, some of the top players, as they're going through the recruiting process, it's a lot to navigate given that these programs are offering NIL to these athletes. So you'll see agencies, you'll see advisors get involved a little bit earlier now in the process, especially with the new recruiting rules, to help those families navigate that ultimately before they cross the bridge of potentially evaluating whether or not the draft is the right fit for them. And ultimately, if the player or the family are confident that they should start their pro career or go to college, like you typically always saw in our space. Now it's kind of earlier, and you're seeing a lot more agencies and advisors getting involved in the college process as well, helping navigate visits to SEC schools, helping them understand the strengths and weaknesses of each program and how that might apply to the player and their family. There's a ton of resources and information that we're obviously privy to doing this, and having players and clients that have played at these universities, knowing the coaching staffs, that we can help kind of peel back the onion for the families and evaluate what program might be best for them, and obviously financially negotiate ideal terms for the player and the family if they do end up choosing that school. There are absolutely NIL agents that are kind of standalone by themselves that work in particular markets on behalf of the players, specifically for marketing dollars. So you could have an NIL agent that's not a MLBPA certified agent that could negotiate a playing contract, or help you with arbitration, or help you when you're on a 40-man roster navigate different challenges and aspects of your professional career, that's still able to go out and find marketing deals for you in the market that you might be playing in. So you could easily have an NIL agent. You see it a lot more in football and basketball traditionally, just because the money's much bigger than you do in baseball. But there are still some groups in baseball that are marketing only, that go out in the market. And if you're playing at University of Tennessee and it's the Knoxville Mattress Company, they might have some connections and relationships in those markets to then bring you NIL dollars, and partner with those businesses. We obviously do that as well as an agency, as a part of our suite of services that also includes draft advisement. But there are some I know that just do NIL only for athletes. But I do think it's a lot more prevalent in college and football.
Got it. And so one of those pieces of information that you guys use is the 20 to 80 scale.
Yep.
And so talk to me like I am the dad of a 12U team that I'm taking to Cooperstown. Like I have no pro
Go
experience, I have
have
no
fun. Don't
college.
worry about the 20/80 scale. Go eat some Uncrustables and see how many home runs your kids can hit on those short fences.
Yeah, that's the perfect answer. But like that guy's interested in
Yeah,
like he watches the draft and he's like, what the heck? Like
yeah,
what the heck kind of a scale is that? How'd they come
yeah.
about with it? Like how do you make dollars and cents of that whole 20 to 80 thing? Like what just explain it like at a high level to that the 12-year-old dad.
Yeah. So it's just a way that scouts and agencies and people in the professional space have it's kind of a grading system, an objective grading system um, that is implemented by subjective scouts and people like myself that we've used to kind of evaluate players. And the younger you get, a lot of times you're evaluating potential more than you're evaluating present day value. And we typically use a 30 to 80 scale, with 30 kind of being you're kind of an organizational level player that'll never actually play in the major leagues, but you'll at least get to play in the minor leagues. A 40 would kind of be like a bench player that plays sporadically or maybe a platoon kind of situation. 45, same kind of thing. You'll play half the year because you're a good right-handed hitter and you'll face lefties, but against good righties, they're gonna put a left-handed hitter over you. With a 50 kind of being an average regular, which are not like that's not easy to get in the draft. And like typically when you're kind of ranking future value, once you get outside the first round, a lot of organizations, there's no more 50s left even on the board. They're taking 45 pluses, 40s, 35s, 30s, and then obviously the goal of the organization is to develop those players to be, if you're a 40, to develop them into a 50 ideally, or a 45 plus, and the 50s to 55s, and so on and so forth. A 60 is a plus player kind of in the big leagues. It's just underneath like an all-star, but a first division regular. A 70 is like a top 5 player, in the league. Um, a number one starter, maybe not a number one, but like on most teams would be a number one starter. On some, maybe not the case. And then your 80 is like, there's only a few of those in the game. That's like
Hall of
Aaron
Famers.
Judge, Aaron Judge and Tarek Skubal are 80s, right? They're just
Yeah.
Paul Skeens an 80. Like those are the top of the top. Juan Soto last year on the open market was a true 80 probably at the time, and still is. I mean, he's an incredible offensive talent, incredibly talented player. So those are kind of the 80s that are just the top of the top, as high as you can get in terms of talent. And again, when you're in college and when you're in high school, you're evaluating these tools, which for a position player, you're going to look at hit ability, raw power, run, fielding, and throwing arm. And those
Yeah.
are kind of the 5 tools. And if you have potential to have 70s or 80s across the board in those categories, you're going really good in the draft because you have a lot of tools that those scouts can then project. The organization's player development system can then develop into potentially an 80 type player. I mean, I think if you polled most GMs, if they had a couple 80s in the field, they'd be really confident in their chances of winning games.
Yeah. Well, great information. That's the best, easiest explanation that I've heard yet.
Yeah,
So it
no
seems like a
problem.
bit more complicated of an answer sometimes.
Yep.
All right, so at some point here, right, you're going to be that 12-year-old dad, hopefully, right, with taking your kid to Cooperstown.
Yeah.
But let's fast forward to now you have that 18-year-old and he's getting recruited. Hopefully, he doesn't have 2 left feet like you. He's not a DH or a
Yeah.
corner
Yeah.
outfielder, but let's just say has the ability to play up the middle.
Yeah.
What advice would you give that 18-year-old? That's some years from now, right? So people might be throwing
Right.
117 by
Yeah.
then.
Right.
but what path would you recommend to him based on what you know right now? Like if he's gonna go to college, what would be your recommendation to him of what type of school should he go to?
Great question. Um, this is actually for me something I'm very passionate about because I could not have had a better college experience at Miami. It was such a good fit for me because it was close to home. It wasn't too far away from my hometown. I could drive there. It was a great business school, which I wanted to be involved with when I was evaluating colleges, and it was a program where I could play. If I would have gone to Vanderbilt or South Carolina or Tennessee, I would have never played a single game in my college career. And that would have been a completely different experience, obviously, than looking back and being able to have played alongside some of the guys I played with. And that to me is very important. Like, what is my true talent level? Where do I feel like I can play? The coaching staff. I got lucky that Danny and the rest of the staff took me on my junior year and got to play for them. That was a great experience. So like all these layers to the college process, I would say, do you like the coaching staff? Do you like the school? Does it check boxes that are important to you academically? Do you feel like you'll be able to go there and play? And do you feel like the culture is going to be a good fit for you? Because ultimately, that to me is the most important thing. And if you can check all those boxes, that's great. Now we see with the transfer portal, if you go somewhere and you play early and you blow up and you ultimately want to make a decision and go somewhere else, it's never been easier to do that. We didn't have that luxury when I was playing. It was you had to go to junior college or you had to sit out a year. It was like you were kind of much more locked into that program that you chose. Now, I think with high school players, 18-year-old kids that are looking at going to play college baseball, those are the things that I'd be evaluating, not just what's their national ranking, how many guys have they had drafted. Those are all important as well. They just wouldn't be in the driver's seat for me. I'd really want to know, okay, what am I passionate about away from baseball? What am I passionate about away from the game? What would I like to study? Do they have this program that I'm interested in? Is the school, do I want to be close to home? Do I want good weather? I didn't care about weather. Obviously, I went to Miami of Ohio. It was freezing half the year. But all these things that should matter to you, you should kind of be able to build a list and then say, okay, am I good enough to play there? At the time, obviously in high school, I thought I was. I wasn't, but I eventually got there. Is the school, does it check these boxes for me? And do I feel like culturally it's a good fit? And all those things in my case were very true. So that would be my advice. Can you check all those boxes?
Got it. Great advice. So let's take, the next 10 minutes and, before we hang up with each other here and talk about, advice, really advice that you would give other families, other coaches, based on what you know right now, like living in the space that you live, right? Which is unique. You're not a junior college coach. You work with high level
Yep.
professional athletes. So totally different realm. But based on what you know right now, there's some myths
Yep.
about the recruiting process. Like,
Yep.
what are some of those myths that you could help parents that are potentially going to go through this situation with their son?
Yep. The biggest thing that I might make this just my one thing is to be patient and understand that just because you weren't recruited the hardest or you weren't the first call or other players on your team got called before you by programs maybe better than programs that might be calling you or your son does not mean that long term the trajectory of your son, or if you're the player, that your trajectory as a player is going to be different because of that. Some of our best players in the major leagues were not recruited by every school as soon as they were eligible to be recruited. They were not recruited by all the big Power Five programs. They weren't top 5 round draft picks. And now they're in the major leagues and are some of the most successful major league players in the game of baseball. And these are guys that, again, not a top 5 round pick, not highly ranked on perfect game or PBR, not getting blown up by SEC coaches the minute that they're eligible. These were guys that just enjoyed the game of baseball, worked hard, like to play, like to train, and like to work on their craft. And I think it's getting more and more lost in today's game because of the way the recruiting process is kind of starting to work, that people will lose sight of the long-term goal of just being the best player I can possibly be and enjoying the game of baseball and not making it all the time about what are my numbers, who's recruiting me, where like go enjoy baseball and play baseball because you love the game and you love to work at the game and you love to work at your craft. And you just might end up becoming an all-star in the major leagues, even though you weren't the main guy recruited on your travel team, even though you didn't go to an SEC school, even though you weren't a top 5 round draft pick. And all these guys that we see that don't fall into those buckets that have become all-stars and become these top-end major league players, they love the game, they work very hard, and they're never worried about anything other than what do I need to do tomorrow to be a better version of myself as a player. And that, I think, is the mindset that I wish more players would understand and adopt. And I get it's challenging, and I understand the challenges of the 2025 recruiting environment. I have a nephew going through it right now where he's not getting as many calls as maybe someone else on his team, or some of the programs that he had on his pref list haven't necessarily reached out. That's okay. The right program will find you. Continue to reach out to the schools and the programs you feel you're interested in, and continue to just work on being the best version of yourself and focusing on your craft. Because long term, if you want to play the game at the highest level and you want to make a career out of it, just because at 16 or 17 you're not getting these phone calls now doesn't mean in 10 years the guys that were getting those calls aren't playing anymore and you're an all-star in the major leagues, because I see it firsthand every day now.
Yeah, I just saw this quote of if you take a bucket of water and throw it on a rock, it isn't going to do squat. But if you take one drop every single day, day after day after day,
Yep.
and eventually it's going to create a
Yep.
hole.
Yep.
And so it's the consistency
Yep.
of, doing what you love to do day in and day out.
Yep.
The other one is, excellence is mundane. You just
Yep.
gotta really love doing,
Yeah.
the same thing over and over in the game of baseball in order to be
Yep.
good at it.
Yeah.
You brought up Scooble before, and I
Yeah.
just saw this video of a conversation between him and Paul Skeens, and did you see this one? He goes, "Hey Paul, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
how many places did you get recruited from?" He goes,
Exactly.
"Two, Air Force and Navy." And he
Yep.
goes, "Yeah, dude, and you went there, and you were a catcher. You weren't even a pitcher."
Exactly.
And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
they're kind of just joking about it, like, "Yeah, man, like, I don't know what he ended up saying. Like, he didn't
Yeah.
reach sort of pitching maturity until he felt like he was 26 or something." But it was a great
Yep.
little interview, and
That's a
everyone there's
phenomenal
a
video. Yeah. But
yeah,
and that's to that point. These are two of the best pitchers in the major leagues, and he was recruited to go to school as a catcher, and he's going to win the
yeah,
Cy Young. Like,
yeah,
and that's where, like, again, like, you see kind of, and what makes these guys successful. Like, they were never doing it for the Twitter views, or to post on their Instagram. All that's great, and I understand, like, when you commit, absolutely do that. But this is a beautiful game, and I miss it dearly playing it. I'm sure you do as well. And my fondest memories looking back on college are not the home runs or any of that stuff. It's like the teammates I got to play with and playing the game of baseball and going to weddings still to this day with the guys I went to college with, and my wife being like, "You're a different person around them." I'm like, "No, I'm not a different person. I'm just we went into a time machine and we're back in Oxford, and these are guys that
yeah,
I blood sweat shared blood sweat and tears with over the years, playing the game." And that to me is the coolest part about the game of baseball, is the relationships you develop, the people you get to spend time with, the people you get to play with. And so when you're in it now in high school, same thing, like, enjoy that. Some of my best friends to this day are guys I played high school baseball with, and that lives far beyond your playing career.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, when you guys are sitting around at the Bledsoe Agency, it's hopefully you guys are enjoying a beer at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, what are you guys talking about? What's that uncomfortable truth that you feel like you probably don't let the world know that you're talking about, but you guys are talking about kind of behind the scenes? Like, what is that uncomfortable truth for players, for families, for parents? Guys like me, right?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
How hard the game is. I don't think people understand. We've talked about it, but you asked me, like, how do you hit this? And I told you, I do not know. I will
Hmm.
never be even close enough to talented enough to the talent level required to know what it takes to succeed at that level. And we never lose sight of that as a group, and us individually, that these players and our clients and all the players in professional baseball and in the major leagues are incredibly talented and incredibly gifted. And to your point, the game has never been harder, and helping players and families navigate that is something that we are really passionate about. But we always say this: until you get to the big leagues, you don't know. It is such a hard game. And at the highest level, in front of 35,000 every night, on TV every night, facing the best of the best, trying to win, trying to compete, trying to provide for your family. There's a lot of things that go into being a Major League Baseball player that aren't the playoffs and pitching in front of 45,000 people chanting your name, and the All-Star game and some of the cool high moments of that the public is aware of. Obviously, it's a big iceberg, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
things underneath that are challenging, and it's not an easy living. And it's what drives us and energizes us as a group to serve the clients that we serve in the way that we serve them, because we know how challenging it is to do what they do and how incredibly impressive they are as athletes and as individuals, and it's fun to work for them.
Yeah, that's great. What's what's the best advice anyone's ever given you as a player, as a coach, as a parent, as a human?
Wow. How long do you have? No. Um, um, I would say to follow your passion, and it's something I've done in the agency space. It's something I did in college, and I've always loved the game of baseball. I don't feel like I work. It's not an easy job, being an agent. It's not easy to have your own agency, but it's incredibly rewarding, and I'm incredibly passionate about it. So there's never a day that goes by that I feel like is work. And even in college, if you don't love it, those 5 a.m. alarm clocks are going to get old. Those 6 a.m. lift sessions are going to get old. Driving by the fraternity house on Friday night after you just lost 7-1 and went 0 for 4 with 3 Ks, knowing you got to go home and go to bed because you got a game Saturday while all your other friends are out partying. If you don't love it, it's going to be very challenging. And so I would say, some people say, oh, don't follow your passion. Like I would disagree with that. I think following your passion, and spending your life really devoted to something that you care about is with people you care about, is about as good as it gets. And that's from the career side of things. I think the most important thing would always be family. I had parents that did everything under the sun for me to provide me with opportunities that they never had. My sister and I were first generation college. I don't lose sight of that. And, for my children and my wife, like, they're the most important things in my life. And even baseball does not come above that. So I think that's on the life side of things, family first, has always been the most true thing. And on the career side of things, I'd say follow your passion, and just holistically to kind of round it out, I would just say, be a good person, treat others how you want to be treated. I don't think you can beat that.
Yeah, excellent. We should actually wrap up on that because that was really good. But I do have a couple more questions for
Sounds
you.
good.
Maybe I could resplice it.
Yeah.
But that was,
Yeah.
appreciate that answer. That was great. Early specialization is something we always talk about on these. And, Major League Baseball during the draft, when I listen to that, they talk about athletes and athletes and athletes and athletes, right? And obviously you're recruiting, or those guys, right? They're drafting athletes that play up the middle of the field. So
Yeah.
I still think there's, at times it is double-edged sword, right? Is like, you got to lift, you got to do this, you got to do that. Like, the craft, your craft, whether it be as a pitcher or as a hitter, it's just got to get polished.
Yeah.
Is there a right time? Like, no one seems to argue that early specialization is a bad thing, but no one defines what early is. And is there a time that, if I have a chance to be a really high level prospect, I should probably just jump in and go after it, follow my passion. Right. So at what age do you think that's potentially the right time to do that when it comes to baseball?
Yeah, great question. I would say probably high school would be my personal take. Not to say that that's gospel or that's the right answer, but and even then, I think you have to really define the opportunity cost of what would playing another sport take away from me doing this. I would play high school basketball. I have some of the best memories ever playing high school basketball, and I would remember leaving basketball practice and eating dinner in my mom's car. Well, my freshman year at JV, and I was headed to my baseball practice and gym in the winter. So it never was an or, it was always an and for me. I'm playing basketball and I'm training for baseball. So I think there is too much that would take you away from being able to do all of that. So ultimately, I think it's for the player and the family to decide, okay, what are we potentially looking at in terms of my career? What do I enjoy doing? How much do I enjoy these other sports? And then obviously from there, making a call. But I would say high school would probably be, for me, just looking at it, would be the kind of cutoff there. And if you were like, hey, I get to high school and I'm going to go all in on baseball and play fall ball, use the winter to train and train really hard, and then play, in the spring, great. I don't think that we have this conversation a lot internally too. If we had Hunter Bledsoe on right now, we get into the weeds. But because we've had players too, like Colson Montgomery, who just came out in the major leagues this year and obviously did fantastic and is such a talented young player with the White Sox. You should have seen him play basketball in high school. And scouts would go watch him play basketball in high school, and they were like blown away by how talented he was on the court. And he loves basketball and loved playing. And he was never looking at it like, I'm going to quit basketball to focus solely on baseball. And Colson is first round draft pick out of high school in the major leagues, and one of the fastest players in the White Sox, organization history to hit 20 plus homers as a rookie, doing all these things. And he would never have traded his memories. I'm sure I'll have to ask him, but I don't think he would. I'm confident saying I don't think he would ever trade his memories of high school basketball in Indiana and those sold out gyms on Friday night just for more baseball training because he seems to be doing fine without it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you can also, he easily could have not played basketball and devoted all of his time and energy and effort to baseball if that's what he enjoyed doing. And I think that would be fine as well. I just would really stress that evaluate your time. And if you're spending enough time, great. But don't say, I'm not going to play basketball, even though I love it, because I'm going to get ready for baseball and I train once a week. That to me would be like, well, you might as well just play basketball because you can still train once a week and play basketball.
Yeah. So we're really setting priorities and making sure that you can do anything you want to do
Yeah.
inevitably, but you got to
Yeah.
make sure that you set opportunity costs. Spoken like
Yeah.
a true finance guy, but
Yeah. 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 That's right.
but yeah, I think that's spot on, right? Is it just really depends on your own life situation, your family situation, your ability
Yeah.
to get to and from those places, the
Yep.
cost of all of that. I mean,
Yep.
there's so much that comes into a decision like that. So
Yep.
again, appreciate that.
Yeah.
We'll wrap us up here. I'm a high level prospect. Why should I come and work for you versus someone else that's knocking on my door, calling me, saying that that I'm the next first rounder
Yeah.
and I should go work with them instead. Like why you
Right.
guys versus someone else?
Well, we would work for you. So we work for the player and the family. There's the first thing. You don't work for us. We don't ever lose sight of that, or we never forget that we work for these players and we work for these families and we serve them. And that they do usually have a lot of people knocking on their doors to serve them. So we never lose sight of that. I would say with our firm, you have an agency, not an agent. Most of the time, you'll have an agent that works for a company that is your agent, with various people in the agency that you may never come across, doing different functions and different things for your career. With our firm, most of our clients, probably all of our clients, have a first name and first, direct relationships with all of our partners and all of our employees. So you don't just have an agent, you have an agency, and we are as about involved as you could ever be in terms of a baseball player and reaching their goals of playing in the major leagues and being the best version of themselves. We are all hands on deck, 24/7, 365, baseball only, baseball 24/7. That's all we think about. We live, we eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. And all of our focus is only on making you the best version of yourself and then going out and working as hard as we possibly can to make sure you capture all that value that you create.
Well, you got me. I don't have any playing time left. My
Yeah.
career's over, but
Yeah.
you convinced me. So,
Yeah.
Gary, I appreciate your time, appreciate your energy, and everything you brought to this podcast. Obviously, if you want to add anything else, now is your time to do it.
No, I appreciate everything you're doing in the space and thanks for having me on. And yeah, unfortunately, you don't have any time left. If you had the garage you have now back when you were young, we might have been representing
Man,
you.
I mean, you talk about how the game has changed. You're a little bit younger than I am, but yeah, it's come a long way. I think about that all the time. I threw 92, which back in that day was really hard,
Yeah.
and I didn't lift weights. I didn't do squat. I drank more beers than I did lift weights. So
Yeah.
I had it in me, and it'd be interesting to see what could have happened if I had what these kids have nowadays. Maybe I'd be throwing 107. Who knows?
That's a good place to end on. I would say that if you're a player today, you have so much more at your disposal, information wise, technology wise, training wise, than we did. And I probably had more than you did when I was coming up. And it only continues to improve to take advantage of it because
Yeah.
we didn't know what we didn't know back then. And a lot of this stuff wasn't quantifiable like it is now. We didn't have force plate. We did, but we weren't using force plates. We weren't using ball tracking. We weren't using this stuff outside of a 60-yard dash and a radar gun. So,
A stopwatch and a ray gun.
that's it. That's it. So if you're a player now, like take advantage of it. If you're wondering why you're not at a certain level, usually you can objectively measure it at this point. It might be you don't hit the ball hard enough. Maybe you need to run faster, and there's people and there's information out there that can help you do all that.
Yep. Great way to wrap it up. Gary, thanks for your time. Appreciate everything.
Tony, thanks for having me. This was fun.
All right, man. Take care.
See you.